Hello and welcome to Patched. I'm your host, Paul James. Today I'm joined by Matto Phillips. How's things, mate?
Are you? All right. Guess.
Feeling 200 million bucks?
Not quite.
No, not quite. You'd have to
I
be working.
wish.
You'd have to be a PlayStation game to be worth that much.
Make a PlayStation game, or make two PlayStation games.
I don't
Who
know, but
knows?
yeah, I guess it was like a ham-fisted joke segue into today's topic, which is talking about the price of AAA game development these days. Because thanks to the Xbox Activision FTC court case that's kind of going on at the moment, there was some paperwork that had to be submitted. PlayStation submitted that with a really botched attempt at redacting key information, being like price, like how much it costs to make games, over how long, all that sort of thing. And so we found out that The Last of Us Part 2 cost PlayStation $220 million to make, and Horizon Forbidden West $212 million, and both of those being about over 4 to 5 years, give or take. So we're basically getting into the topic of cost of making AAA games, and is it sustainable, and we'll just see where the conversation kind of goes. So what was your first impression when you saw those numbers pop up?
I spat out my beer.
Did
Or
you
my
have a beer
tea.
at like 8 in the morning?
My tea. I spat out my tea because the one thing we never hear about is how much a game takes to make.
Yeah,
Movies, we hear it
you
all
kind
the
of get
time. All the
ballparks.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the time we hear movies like, oh, this movie cost 100 million to make, or 200 million. But games, you sort of barely hear about it unless
Games
it's
are
a court
tight-lipped about
case.
everything.
Yeah, except for the sales. They'll love to talk about sales. Hey, we
Well,
made
if they're
this
good.
many sales.
Yeah.
Unless you're Square Enix and saying, hey, you made 20 million, not good enough. Final Fantasy 7, 50,
Underperformed.
bad. Underperforming whatsoever. But yeah, it's just one of those things you don't really hear about unless it's a big fine from a court, like a Epic Games misleading small kiddies on Fortnite or anything like that. It's just, oh, hey guys, this game costs so much to make, and everyone just thinks, oh, wow. But then you see this and go, hey, The Last of Us Part 2 cost 220 million, and you think, that's a lot of money.
And just to be clear, that's US dollars. So when you convert it to Aussie dollars, it's probably closer to about 350 million, $360 million for both of those. So yeah, big numbers. Um, yeah, I mean, I knew that games were costing hundreds of millions of dollars. I didn't quite realize that. I mean, I guess like two single player things like that are costing PlayStation $400 million just to make them in the first place, all up, or close to 700 Aussie dollars, whatever. Again, whichever way you want to spin it. It was, yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what I expected. I guess the one thing that really put things into context, and again, keep in mind this will be US dollars. Robert Morrison, who works for Bend Studio these days, but he's kind of done a few different things for PlayStation over the years. He's credited in The Last of Us Part 1, the PS5 remake. He worked on God of War 2018, but he's also been with NetherRealm and done Injustice 2. He's been with Capcom, did Resident Evil 7. Like he's been around a fair bit, but these days he's at Bend, so another PlayStation studio. And he didn't speak like definitive in the case of like at Bend we do blah blah blah, but like he just put a simple math sort of thing out there, and I guess I'd probably underestimated what maybe the average salary was for a game developer these days, and I guess it is average. Obviously, you get people above, people below, but his little simple math thing, and I'll kind of quote. He goes, "Simple math, $100,000 average salary, 400 people, 5 years, $200 million," which, when you put it simply like that, makes all the sense in the world. But I'd probably just underestimated how much it costs. Oh, and actually, sorry, these 212 and $220 million things are not including marketing. Whatever PlayStation spends for marketing on top of it, that's just the cost of making the game. Um, but yeah, I guess when he kind of put that information out, it made a hell of a lot more sense. I mean, studios are getting big these days. It's as soon as though like I read those numbers, I instantly think about like those Ubisoft jobs. You know how like Ubisoft's got about 10 different teams working on 15 different Assassin's Creed games or Far Cry games or whatever, and they're all kind of crossing over. I can't even get my head around what the cost of those sort of games would be. But I guess yeah, when you look at it that way, and people earning about $100,000 a year, US again, I guess it all kind of checks out, right?
Oh yeah, when I saw that same tweet as you did the math, I thought, yeah, that's a lot of money. This and that. That's a lot of staff doing, especially for Horizon, because Horizon's a huge game
Yeah,
in itself.
interesting that it costs
Plus,
less than The
that's
Last of Us to make.
that's the weirdest because being at The Last of Us Part Two, I would say I haven't played it. I played The Last of Us, but if you go off what The Last of Us was, it's more of a, what would you say, a linear based game
Yeah,
where Horizon's is an open world and you just go to different places. It looks different depending on where you go, and like I said, the map is huge.
let alone
So you
PS5
probably,
game versus a PS4 game too. So the technology side of it as
oh
well.
yeah,
I mean, I guess
yeah,
Horizon's on both, but like you've got to develop for PS5 and
mainly.
PS4.
But you look at it, it was mainly for PS5.
Yeah,
The way I look at it is
no, I
for
agree. And then they
PS5.
dialed it back.
But yeah, but you sort of scratch your head and go, how did Horizon Forbidden West cost less than The Last of Us Part 2? And it's
Less development time, I think, is probably
less
all it boils
development
down
time.
to. I think that's probably the thing in the end is just it took them less
Oh
time
yeah.
to make it.
Also, too, it did get delayed as well. So did Horizon, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Look, both got delayed, but one of the other things that kind of came out was like development for The Last of Us Part Two ultimately started, and it wouldn't have been. I mean, obviously the game. I mean, it came out in 2020, The Last of Us Part Two, but development started in 2014. So it took them 6 years, but of course they're not, all 400 people working on it or whatever the number happens to be. They don't have the full staff on at the same time. If you think about the Naughty Dog scenario, they did Uncharted 4 along the way. Like Uncharted 4 came out in 2016, so part of the team was working on The Last of Us, part of it would have been working on Uncharted. I think about Neil Druckmann, for example, and he kind of got thrust onto. Now, obviously, he'd be the most like the highest paid person at the studio, I would have thought, but he would have. Well, he wasn't meant to be working on Uncharted, but the whole Amy Hennig scenario went down, and so he had to jump across to kind of save Uncharted 4, for want of a better phrase. Um, so yeah, like they're kind of moving around. People are being moved around. I guess if you want to kind of work out budgets, it's a little bit harder to kind of how much of his year-to-year salary was Uncharted 4. Well, also like it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. You get paid a salary for the year and you do what you need to do. But it's kind of what maybe a 4-year development was ultimately stretched over like 6 because of you'd be phasing people in and out in different projects. Like I'm sure as it got towards the end of The Last of Us Part Two's development cycle, part of that team would have been starting to pivot off to go work on the multiplayer, which has now been delayed, and God knows what will happen to that.
Well, that's probably where all the money went into multiplayer. Maybe it was $100 million, and they spent $100 million on the multiplayer things, and it's still not here.
And at the same time, and if you remember the reports from I don't know, a year or two ago now, the Jason Schreier Bloomberg ones, where he was talking about there was initially a period. I mean, it ended up being The Last of Us Part One that was being that got developed, but like there was Uncharted and a remake of the original Uncharted that was potentially going on, and so they were sending some of their staff to go work with the PlayStation Visual Arts group to help with that. Like it's never just the whole team working on one thing. I'm firmly of the belief actually that while Microsoft is trying to gobble up every developer and publisher in the world at the moment, and PlayStation's doing a little bit of themselves, I think one of the best things they can do is actually just invest in themselves and like take Naughty Dog from a single team studio to big enough that they can have maybe 2 or 3 like teams working on 2 or 3 different projects, and it's not like one is being phased in while another's starting to come to an end. It's more like we've got 2 big games going or 3 big games going at the exact same time, and they're like fully staffed. Similar to what they did at one point when they were working on The Last of Us, the original Last of Us, and Uncharted 3. They were basically a 2-team studio, and it nearly killed them. But I think it's because they were trying to stretch the team across that. Whereas if PlayStation just throws money at it, just keeps hiring and hiring and hiring and gets more top tier talent in there, then you can do that a bit easier. And similar sort of idea with Guerrilla, who seem to be working on something that's also not Horizon, whether like a shooter of some sort. But we'll see. Based on some past hirings and those sort of things. Maybe they're going back to Killzone. I don't know. We'll wait and see there. So this is like spinning right off it, but based on everything we've just discussed, how much do you reckon GTA 6 is costing already?
Oh,
to make it, to make it.
But the thing with GTA 6 though, they can spend $1 billion on it, and they'll get that all back within 3 days, even 2, because.
And to be fair, those PlayStation ones probably the same deal. Like God of War comes out, or Ragnarok comes out, or Last of Us comes out, or Horizon comes out, and they make their money back within the first week. I'm sure of it.
But even with GTA, they'll just go, let's just spend all the money on it because we know this game is going to sell.
Yeah.
You say about God of War Ragnarok, pretty much. It's gonna sell. You put a hammer in there, people are gonna buy that stuff. No one, no one's gonna complain whatsoever. Yeah, I can see. I can see it. I can see it. Next to
Well,
the droid.
I mean, if you then think through, and we'll put this in terms of Aussie dollars, but like, so let's say your Last of Us, or so actually the cheapest one was Horizon, so close enough to $200 million. Your $200 million in Aussie dollars, closer to 300, so in that sort of ballpark. If you sell 3 million copies of God of War at 100 Aussie dollars, and we know that that's not the case because well, JB might undercut, but like the full retail at EB or buying it digitally is like 120 or something like that. But at $100, you need like 3 million copies of the game, and you've made your money back already. God of War sold that in less than a week, so they've already made their money back. That would be the game paid off, a couple more days, and your marketing budget's paid off, and then it's all just profit from there. And I mean, something like Spider-Man, for example, that sold 20 million copies.
What's the first one?
The Spider-Man 2018 sold 20 million copies.
Oh,
Miles Morales
crap.
is like 15 or 16, and I'm sure still climbing. God of War 2018 sold nearly. I'll have to double check that one, but I feel like that's nearly 20 million copies as well. Like it's just God of War 2018 sales. Like they don't have any issues at all. It does. Oh, jeez. 23 million copies of God of War 2018.
Crikey.
Now,
How much? How many dollar dues do they get back per copy of the game? That's even if you did.
I don't know.
Even if you
I mean,
did $10, that's still 200 million right there. And if you say, "Oh, we get $50 back," that's a billion. If
well,
that's if my math is
23
correctly.
million times by then $100, and I've run out of room. But like it's
2 billion.
2.3 billion. Done.
So I don't
And
know what
that's
they complain about.
you might pay your 200 million. You might then spend I don't know maybe another 100 on marketing, but like it's nothing. It's laughable for them, and so it does make it. Yeah, it's interesting to me that they would be so focused on the multiplayer live service stuff when sure they invest a lot of money into these things, but they get so much more back, and people just buy a PlayStation first party game now because of the logo on the front. Like I'm sure Days Gone is still unbelievably profitable as well, and it's considered the weakest PlayStation first party title in a long time.
Yeah, because if it's a PlayStation exclusive, people are going to buy it no
30
matter what.
33 million copies of Spider-Man as of May last year.
Jesus. That's a lot. That's almost like nearly half the consoles of PS4s. But it's also PS5 as well. But still, that's like 50% of console owners have a game of Spider-Man. That's insane.
Trying to find some miles numbers. And obviously, yeah, keep in mind that they will go up since.
Then Spider-Man's coming out. There's going to be more. Then maybe a movie just for no reason. Just because I'll buy more games.
As of February last year, Spider-Man Miles Morales was PlayStation's third best-selling game in the US of all time. But it's not a specific
all time.
Yeah, and that's only behind Spider-Man and God of War 2018.
So Ragnarok would have shot straight up to number one then if that's the case. Or might not have.
Oh wait, no, Marvel Spider-Man PlayStation. So actually, no, sorry, that number from June last year, the 33 million, that was combining Miles and.
And Spider-Man.
But it's probably like 20 and 13 or something like that because you. So. It's
still that is a large number.
Yeah, 33 million. Again, there's 3.3 billion dollars, and that's your money for Bungie right there. Done.
Done. Done in 1 week. Oh, there you go. We get this Spider-Man money, give it to Bungie.
Let alone the fact that holy shit, they're like Spider-Man 2 is about to come out, Wolverine's coming somewhere along the way, and they fit Ratchet and Clank in there along the way. So, which apparently hasn't sold amazingly well in the end, but.
Which is disappointing because it is a really good game, which is unfortunately.
I'll see if I can.
Sorry, kids. It's not Crash Bandicoot.
When did it come out? Oh,
it was like 2020, 2021.
2021, and it was pretty early in the piece. Like by July of that year, it had already sold over 1 million copies. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we don't have a more recent number than that, but. Which would suggest that it hasn't sold amazingly well on the like PlayStation's side, but it still would have, again, 1.1 million copies in less than a month. There's $100 million, and I suspect Ratchet didn't cost them Spider-Man
Nowhere near. You wouldn't
levels of.
think it would have cost 200 million to make Ratchet and Clank. That's for sure.
Yeah.
No,
So
especially how efficient Insomniac is. I'm pretty sure you would think it would be well and truly under the 100 million, possibly.
yeah,
You never know.
yeah, it might be 100 to 150 maybe.
There might not be 400 developers on that game.
I guess there's a lot less, like, you don't have to contend with Marvel along the way when you're working on this. There's not, it cuts you a little bit of time. You've got your own characters, your own stuff, your own technology, all those sorts of things, which maybe makes it a bit easier. But yeah, it's certainly interesting when these numbers kind of come out. We've obviously touched on GTA. Why can't Microsoft just throw more money at their first party studios then to make their games better? Like, just hire good people and don't let them leave,
I think,
like in the case of the initiative.
As I say, because they all left, they probably did pay all the good ones money, and they all left. Just like 343, all there.
Yeah, they're bleeding
Good people
talent.
left
The
as
initiative lost
well.
heaps.
Or maybe they should get someone that knows what they're doing, as harsh as it is to say, because at the moment it doesn't seem that they know what they're doing. Just buy a developer and hope for the best.
Yeah,
Which just
all
seems
this
to be the
commentary about them
standard
being really
Microsoft.
hands off.
Hands off.
Yeah, that's all the commentary you kind of hear about Microsoft with all these teams that they've bought. Is like they're really hands off with them. Like, you've got experts at the very top there. Get them involved. PlayStation's developed the top brass at PlayStation. The Scott Rhodey's, Shuhei Yoshida's, all those sorts of guys. I mean, not that Shuhei's there anymore. He's on the indie side, but like, they would be touring the studios all the time and giving feedback. And if it didn't pass like the Shuhei test, then your game was in a lot of trouble. Back in the day, so.
I think that's half the problem with Microsoft Studios. It's just, we're making a game. We don't know if it's good or not, but we're making a game. That's
And as they get bigger and bigger, how's Phil and the team meant to, and Matt Booty and all those guys meant to actually keep across all these teams to make sure that the games are on track? Because you've got suddenly 2 or 50 different developers in the space of a year, and give them proper time, let alone do your own normal day-to-day work and try and buy other studios. Spend all your time in court dealing with the FTC.
yes, dealing
and
with
Jim
the
Ryan in
FTC.
video calls.
I mean, you can tell he just has no effort whatsoever. Like the old, no one likes being on Games Pass. Who are these people? I'm not saying. Not
Well,
telling
the
you. He
publishers
sounds like a
and-
five. He sounds like a 5-year-old kid. It's just telling a lie. We don't know if it's true or not. Like, he doesn't like ice cream. What? Who? I'm not telling you who.
Do you remember? Now this is like, the scale is totally different, but do you remember the Somerville? It was from the someone who'd kind of broken off from Playdead, the Limbo and Inside developers. Came out like last year or the year before. Like, he came out and said that Game Pass was bad for business for them. Strauss Zelnick, the head of Take-Two, doesn't like it. Doesn't put their games into Game Pass until kind of later. Like, their model is very much the same as PlayStation's. Like, get as many sales as we can and then put it across. And I think more and more developers and publishers are starting to come to that way of thinking. I mean, even if you look at what PlayStation does, they're not. I mean, they've got their own first party stuff, but they don't. You don't see like big AAA new titles coming day and date to PlayStation Plus. You might get that with an indie, but they've probably paid them completely up front, and then that's it. And like Stray comes out, like Stray is one of the more recent examples. She's a really good example because it's done 1 year in Game Pass, in PlayStation Plus, and it's no longer free, starting, I don't know, the middle of this month, something like that. I think a month will.
Unless you have Games Pass.
Well, yeah, and that's unsurprisingly, it's about to come to Xbox now. So they double dip. They've got their PlayStation Plus money, and now they've got their Game Pass money as well. But like the moment's gone for Stray at this point now. They'll take their money and be stoked. So I mean, there's definitely some people that aren't big on what Game Pass is doing. So Jim Ryan's kind of, I mean, he's deliberately keeping his mouth shut, probably because he doesn't want to throw any partners under the bus. But there's definitely publishers out there that don't want to go with that Game Pass model, and it's because the games cost them enough. And if you're suddenly not selling the game because you've just taken your money up front, well, then how can you profit?
Yeah, well, that's fair enough. But it's sort of, I don't understand why big name developers would put their games on Games Pass because you sort of feel like
At least straight away. Yeah.
straight away. It's like you like the Yakuza games. Like the Yakuza games have been out for years, and all of a sudden they're on both. They're not just on Games Pass, but it's sort of that same thing. You don't see them day one on there. They just appear later.
Well, it's pretty wise of Sega in that sort of thing because like they know that their games, whether it's Persona or Yakuza, like they're not actually selling overly well on Xbox because most of that audience is kind of PlayStation anyway because they don't mind their JRPG. Like there's a whole bunch of different things that kind of draw them more to PlayStation than Xbox. So they're not necessarily buying an Xbox to play Yakuza and that sort of thing, but they'll probably take Microsoft's money, which probably pays off the entire development of the game. Like, okay, it costs $150 million to make Yakuza 8, whatever it was called, the new one where he gets his ass out. And they'll probably, like Microsoft probably pays them that much money. They get their $150 million, great, development's paid off, and then the game still launches PlayStation day and date. And because PlayStation doesn't do the same thing, and the majority of the audience is there on PlayStation, they get all of those sales. Like they're playing Xbox for fools, Sega, I think.
I think everyone is.
Yeah.
Well, it feels like it.
In some ways, yeah. So, and you know, I mean, it brings up whole other questions about like Game Pass and how it can even work because if games are costing this much, and can you imagine how much Starfield must be costing?
I don't want to know. After this,
500 million.
A lot, heaps.
They've been doing it for how many years? Probably 7 years, 6-7 years.
Probably as much as how much they paid. Microsoft paid for Bethesda. It's probably not 8 billion.
What was it? Yeah, it probably didn't cost them $7 billion, but or 8 billion, yeah, because that's right. It was more than Star Wars and something else combined. But yeah, I don't like. I feel like Game Pass is only afloat because Xbox is run by Microsoft, and Microsoft can just eat the cost without worrying about it.
Yeah. Just loose change in an ashtray somewhere. That's
actually, did you even hear Bobby Kotick say during the FTC thing that
he didn't like it either?
He doesn't like it either. I'm like, mate, you're getting bought by them. He's like, yeah, but that's what the shareholders want.
Oh, like, not him.
It's not necessarily a him thing.
Oh.
But he doesn't care because he gets his golden parachute and he's out the door anyway. So he's laughing.
A golden foot in the ass and out the door you go, buddy.
So
you fool.
He's fine with it even if he doesn't agree with it. No, I think he's right with his comment. Like I don't think it works, and I think there's more and more evidence starting to pile up that it shows it doesn't work. And now you add the cost of AAA development in there. It's all adding up. Unless all the games are just like Redfall, at which point clearly Redfall only cost about $50 million because it's shit.
So even $50 million is still not worth it.
And they lost 70% of the developers along the way. They all left. Which I guess on the flip side now, like talking about developers staying and those sort of things. Do you remember, like, so with the Bungie deal where they spent whatever it was billion to get Bungie? It was part of the contract was that it's like a not non-disclosure, it was like some binding thing that kept them there. So if you left Bungie, then you wouldn't get your full payout. Like each developer,
we did talk about this. Yeah.
So like there's kind of those sorts of things that go into it all as well. Like it's really wise by PlayStation. At face value, you go shit, they overpaid him. But really, when you think about it, now they've kept all the best talent there, like locked the best talent down because they want to get their. I mean, how big of a studio is Bungie? Do we know how many developers are there?
No. They made Destiny, so I'm taking a guess it might be quite large. I'm going to say 200.
901, apparently.
900 and what? Where's that one come from?
I don't know where the one's
come from. Where did they just randomly find one person, just rounded off to 900?
But Forbes, like last year, they're roughly 900. I don't know why they wouldn't just
say 900.
But yeah, roughly 900. But like, okay, so 900...
Oh, here at Bungie, we have 901 people. Like, why can't you just say we have around 900 people? You don't just you throw people off with OCD doing that sort of stuff.
My phone calculator doesn't allow me to fit 3 billion into it. 300 million is the best I can get. Times it by 10, divided by 900.
Oh, here we go.
Theoretically, no IP, none of that sort of stuff. Like just ignoring what Bungie is. Theoretically, each person is worth at that studio is worth $3 million each, or $3.3 million each.
3.3 million.
Now, like obviously the top dogs will get much more of that, and blah 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 blah. But I think it kept them bound to the studio for Oh shit, I don't know.
I'd be staying there too for
10
3.3
years.
million.
Like, so you basically get an extra $300,000 a year, and if you leave, you throw away that whatever's left of that, say, 3 billion that you, sorry, 3 million that you're owed, or whatever it is.
Oh,
It's
just thinking
huge.
about it.
Like, just imagine if you were working at Bungie, and then the acquisition happens, and you're like,
I'm
I was
leaving.
considering leaving, but not anymore. Um, you just
I think I'm
cop
going to
whatever
leave.
goes on.
Yeah, I think I'll leave. Oh, but there's $3 million here for you. Oh well, hang on a second.
You even look at it and go, all right, I'll just stay for five let's just say it was 10 years. I don't know how long this agreement lasted for, but let's say it was 10 years, and like, I'll stay for half of it. I'll get an extra $1.5 million just in my pocket over the course of that time, and then I'll bounce. And like, my life's set because I'm getting my normal salary plus that extra, like, that bonus. Again, it averages out. Like, that's on average what each person's getting. It's insane. Jeez, I wish I was working at Bungie in 2021 or 2022.
I wish I was just cleaning a toilet at Bungie just to even get the little bit of that money.
Can you imagine if you got hired like a couple of days after, and so you're not eligible for that money?
Oh, that would suck.
you'd be
I'd be
filthy.
crying in the corner.
Or you're the bloke who's just been hired, like the new hire. Then the deal goes through, and you've just walked into.
And everyone's rocking up to work in their flash-looking cars, and you're there in some bomb.
No, because if you got hired just beforehand, it doesn't matter. Like,
no, but if you got hired after,
if
you got hired after, you're there in your bomb car that doesn't work, and everyone's rocking up in Mercedes or BMWs or Teslas, and you're just there with a car where its wheels fall off every now and then, and you try to figure out what the hell's going on.
Look, to be fair, if you're working at Bungie, you're probably still getting paid all right anyway. And this is like another half of the Robert Morrison tweet. So like, he followed up with I think it was a day after, where he posted a screenshot of just some like jobs that are being listed at the moment. Now, very few of them are like junior, first up roles. They're all kind of senior leadership sort of stuff. But like, principal software engineer at Riot Games, 213 to $325,000 a year. Senior gameplay programmer at PlayStation, remote, by the way, 139,000 to 209,000.
You don't even have to drive to work.
You don't even have to drive to work.
Wake up 5 minutes beforehand, sit down.
Senior graphics programmer at Rockstar, 141. So yeah, I'm just rounding off. 141 to $182,000 a year. Senior level designer at Amazon Games, who have literally done nothing so far, but this is like 92,000 to 180,000.
What?
Lead technical artist at Lightspeed, who I'm not familiar with, 105,000 to 190,000. Working with visual concepts for WWE 2K, senior online engineer, and it is 100% remote, 120 to 180,000. Senior UI programmer at Epic Games, 144 to 241. Senior gameplay generalist software engineer at Alpha Strike, who I'm not. Oh no, that's Roblox. Holy shit! Because it's Roblox, 233,000 to 283,000.
That's how they probably earned that in 5 minutes. That salary.
And then you remember that Blizzard survival game that was announced a year or two ago?
I do.
Systems design director for the unannounced survival game at Blizzard Entertainment, 164 to 304,000. Now again, these are all senior things, and so like when Robert talks about 100,000 being the average, of course you're going to get some people that are earning like $60,000 out the gate, but also $60,000 straight out the gate. Like, you do the quick maths for that, still like $80 to $85,000 Australian. It's more than what I get, isn't it? Like, what I would have gotten as an entry level teacher in my first year. So like, it's off to an awesome start, and then it just grows and grows and grows, and you've got far more scope in that profession than what I've got as a teacher. Once I've hit the top of the scale on my end, I can't go any further.
You've peaked.
Well, not unless I go on to be a principal or some shit. Which, if anyone watches this and has dealt with me over the years, I think you probably know that I'm not principal material.
I never know. You could be the new age principal.
Fuck off, chat. Some of them probably listening to this, and so the point still stands. Anyway, so obviously there's heaps and heaps of money in it, but it's crazy. It's the whole thing's crazy. Let alone, but you factor that into the cost of making games, and any wonder it's costing so much, and you get comments. Especially
like 300,000.
Yeah,
You wonder why it's 200 million, or for not all games are 200 million, but it could peak to 200 million. The
yeah,
seller is that big.
and it's why like it's no surprise that you get comments like Sean Layden's when he was leaving PlayStation, your former CEO or president or whatever the title was, um, where he was talking about like we need to get the price of games is getting ridiculous. We're going to start to see smaller games and all those like get the game clocks back to like 20-hour sort of games rather than 60 because it's just not going to be feasible going forward. And it's fair enough because for every PlayStation title that spends 200 million and succeeds, you're getting something from somewhere else that doesn't. I mean, you think about like Marvel's Midnight Suns, for example, which is a brilliant game, but didn't light it up sales wise straight out the gate. So I don't know. It's a balancing act. Any other thoughts on the whole situation at all?
No, I'm still shocked from how much those games cost, and just thought, yes, if you could spend less on Horizon, because I reckon I played, I don't know, 70 hours of Horizon. I'm pretty sure 30 hours of that was just me walking around to destinations,
Yeah, yeah.
because
Sounds
it's
about
a
right.
huge map.
A
Just
lot,
think
a
about it. You
lot to see and a lot to do.
have that map, because it doesn't need to be that big. I don't understand this whole, oh, let's make a game huge just because we can. Like, I don't care. Don't want big game. Me want good game, not big,
Yeah,
good.
and if it's both, fine. But like, you
Like, go
better.
good, not.
To be fair, Horizon's world is big and it's amazing. So
Oh yeah, no doubt. But you just look at it. Sometimes you see the scope of the map, and you just think, something like Red Dead Redemption 2. He's like, oh, it's 3 times bigger than your normal one. I thought, oh
the first one
man,
was too big. Yeah,
the first one was big enough. You don't need to go 3 times bigger than the last one. Or, oh, Grand Theft Auto is bigger than the last Grand Theft
oh,
Auto by
can you
10 times.
imagine
Like,
how
oh
big the
god,
world of
it's like,
GTA 6 is going to be?
oh, it's like, oh, it's 10 times bigger than 5. Like, oh god, I don't want to play it then. I'm
Yeah,
staying in the city. I don't want to play the missions. Just
yeah,
gonna wander around wherever I am.
it's getting insane. So hopefully Sean Layden's right and things start to get smaller because of just the cost of the games in the first place. But we'll see what happens. All right, we'll wrap things up there then. If you enjoyed this episode of Patch, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. All the buttons are down below. Hit the notification bell. That way you're alerted to every new video the moment it goes live on the channel. That includes Patched, Player 2 Plays, Gamer School, and a whole bunch more. Awesome stuff there, so please subscribe and go and check it out. Visit the website, player2.net.au, for reviews, previews, opinion pieces, news, features, links to the podcast series Patched, the Player 2 Pixelcast, and Dev Diary. We're on Patreon, patreon.com/player2au, kicking a few bucks. Lower tiers, early access. Higher tiers, multi-episode exclusives. And finally, there's Twitter. Matto.
Matto_Phil.
Paul James Games for myself. The website's player2au. Happy birthday to Damo, whose birthday was last week. May he rest in peace, because I don't know where he is at the moment. He's not on the show still. One of these days.
Wagga.
He's what?
Last time I checked, he was in Wagga.
Oh, yeah,
Wagga.
Probably. But otherwise, yeah, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next week.